Hi everybody, what's up? I'm back here for doing another video for the month of November, and I just wanted to update you all that I am currently reading another book that I got out of the library, which is currently by Riley Seeger, Home Before Dark. So, a couple of Janine's recommendations have been through their YouTube channels, and I have been able to follow through listening to them. So, that first book by Riley Sager, I think, is going to be a good start. And Gene and I are going to be bunny reading together to compare with what we think of it and such. But on today's video, I wanted to let you all know that I am just a couple days away now from turning my next age, which is going to be 41 years old. So it's been nearly 40 years now since the day that my family members and I celebrated my very first birthday party. And today I have with me next to my device a little book right here called Our Baby's First Book. And it has in here some facts about when I was born on that very day and some after facts that I soon started to develop, such as my teeth getting bigger and other things as I grew and developed here. But on my very first birthday, how did we celebrate? Well, it was obviously back in our hometown of Burlington, Massachusetts, when both my parents and my grandparents lived at our house on South Bedford Street in the corner of Lexington. And back then, our house was old fashioned, especially the kitchen. It had just a gas stove, and it was decked out in odd gold and mustard yellow and brown. So it was less than 6 months later that we had a major overhaul, and it was more popularly used by that time. But anyway, how we did this was I had both of my aunts and uncles come with my cousins who were alive at that point, and also my great grandfather from my mom's side named James Summers, who was an immigrant from Greece. So my dad rented a nice video camcorder with a VHS tape to see how my growth and development had proceeded by that point, because with less than a year in life, I was already walking on my 2 feet and I didn't need my walker around any longer. So that was when we were asking questions on our family members about what they thought of me. So it was a good way to figure out some body parts and figure out what my favorite toys and song was at the time. So overall, we ate pizza, we had snacks, and at the end there was an ice cream cake. And my older cousins seemed to get in that mood of being having those noisemakers and walking around in a parade like, and I seemed to mimically join by my own pace a little bit. And then at the end, after I had the cake, which I love, which was an ice cream cake, I got it all over myself, obviously. But that's usual reaction when those little ones have their very first birthday. So that was a lot of fun. And some of the gifts I got, my mother and father got me a glow worm, which you push and it makes the face light up. A set of waterworks, which they call it, which you use in the bathtub because I love to take baths. And also a push truck, which we could guide all over the floor. My grandparents gave me a bigger dump truck and some sweat clothes. And then my aunts and uncles gave me stuff like overalls and a set of Matchbox cars and a Fisher Price toy telephone and corn popper. But after that, I got also a teddy bear, and I think I also got a kangaroo. But watching that for many years after that sure gave me a good idea of what I looked like and how young my parents and cousins looked at the time. But this week I was thinking to myself, because last weekend, Jean and I were at the Double House Tree in Portland where we were having an art show. And we were showing people some stuff that we were presenting, which had to deal with fall. And it turned out that people just enjoyed seeing our works of art. And then I ended up getting my quote from Frederick Notch, which I think that's how you pronounce it, bought by my mother. And also, after the election results, a picture that I made of myself to represent that I voted. But then I also had three other bits of artwork sold, and Janine sold some artwork herself. And as a matter of fact, as I see how I make my art nowadays, I really have good talent with drawing with a marker or a colored pencil. And suddenly, when I think about locations that I visit, that really comes to life. And when you blend it in, it really makes a little bit of a difference. And it's more than just drawing a basic picture. And I think I've been doing that ever since I was a toddler myself, drawing and having a board to draw on. And I do believe around the time when I turned 3, back in 1986, one of my gifts at that point was a mini art stand, which I would basically use for doing drawing, like with markers and crayons, and occasionally I did paint. But when I think I got that the day that we had my family third birthday, I think my older cousin Danielle was allowed to show the families her artistic creation. And at that time, I think I didn't realize about the use of taking turns or sharing. And I tried to get in the way, and my mother didn't allow me to do that. And after I had done that 4 or 5 times, then my father threatened to spank me. And because it was 1986, we had the rule in effect about hitting children at that time, which really is a little bit different now, come to think of it. So it made me think a little bit about how there was sexual and child abuse when I read my last book, Peyton Place. And I told you about the characters in that book. That's why I only watched that tape of that third birthday only once. However, that thought did occur to me earlier this week when I had my hair cut in Portland. Our hairdresser told us that she went to her nephew's birthday party, and she said that it was a turning age of 3 where they had some food and celebration. And I think to myself that 3 years old now, this should be the age where children, if they are in mature development, they should be getting along better with other kids learning how to play. However, I've been telling you that since I had the autistic diagnosis and they told me to go to a special ed school starting at age 3, I wasn't up to date with learning how to share toys and let other kids play with my toys at that point. So that's a reason why I felt a little bit ashamed to seeing that happen when I watched my third birthday on tape. But other than that, though, I looked very cute for a kid that time. I was wearing all red, sweats, and a shirt. I had a time where I was digging into some potato chips at the party, and I had a couple of other memorable gifts. So, and I think one of them had to do with my favorite childhood live action show at that point, my first real celebrity crushes. And let me show you how I was learning how to write when I first started. See, before I can learn how to learn and say and write words, I just basically was writing, scribbling, and then I eventually finally learned how to write letters like this. I'll draw a K, I'll draw an I, D, S. Kids. And I bet you were wondering what show I was talking about. Well, back when I had my birthday and then Christmas time, I got video cassettes based on their music. And this was really the first show that I was learning about the effects of what children do when they get into their older generations, like their tweens or young teenage. And just recently this year, some of the stars came back on YouTube and did a 40th anniversary podcast. So even one, I think Fergie, even still had one of her original dresses that she wore on that show. Oh, I forgot. This is the show I was talking about. So you can go on to that website on YouTube and look for it and follow along and feature some great moments and songs because this is how I learned some good pop music, what it was like. But I was a big fan, and I had a Kit fan club sticker around that point, so that was then. So I hope you understand that that's what I was thinking about. So this weekend is going to be right a couple days before my next birthday, and it's almost a year ago to this day where it was my family and I celebrated my very first birthday. And it was actually a couple days before I actually turned one when we did that on that Sunday. And then a couple days later, the whole family came back for that Thanksgiving, which was, of course, not like when we were at the hospital just days after I was born. But this weekend, the next time I do a video with Janine, we're going to be discussing some more media culture, and both of us are going to discuss our thoughts on the Riley Seeger book called Home Before Dark. So, once again, I want to thank people like Destiny Sidwall and Carrie Can Read, and a few others for book recommendations like those. So I'm starting to follow along, and I believe that if I read a little bit more, then I can get a broader width of what happens in this book so I can follow along. And hopefully, I could also mention them to you. So that's what's going to happen. And of course, we want to wish you all a happy and safe Thanksgiving coming up. So if you eat a little too much turkey, that's fine. And you can always burn off by going to the mall. Maybe I would suggest 2 days from then, because you don't want to really be in the process of being caught in the crowds on Black Friday. At least I don't prefer you do. And of course, then we got Cyber Monday on Monday, December 2nd as well. And by the way, my book that I'm reading right now is due at the library that following Tuesday. So I'm going to do my best to follow along and get as much through, just like Janine will, so we can bring you up to date. So in the meanwhile, have a good, safe weekend and hope to talk to you again soon.